Every superhero needs a villain, but Smallville's Season 1 gave us more than just weekly bad guys. These early threats weren't random. They challenged Clark Kent's morality, identity, and sense of purpose. From shapeshifters to power thieves to master manipulators, each villain taught Clark a lesson that pushed him one step closer to becoming Superman. Let's count down the top 3 villains who truly left a mark.
And I finally figured out who Lana wants to be with.
It's gonna be easy to become you, Clark.
No!
At number 3, we have Tina Greer, one of Smallville's earliest and most unsettling villains. Introduced in episode 4, X-Ray, Tina wasn't just another meteor-infected teen with powers. She was the first character to fully challenge Clark on a psychological level. Tina's ability to shapeshift made her an immediate threat. But what made her dangerous wasn't just her powers, it was her mind. Obsessed with Lana Lang, Tina used her abilities to impersonate people in Lana's life, creating confusion, mistrust, and chaos. She didn't just want to be like Lana, she wanted to replace her. The terrifying part? She almost did. For Clark, Tina's presence forced him to confront one of his greatest fears. That someone with powers like his, someone gifted but unstable, could do real harm. Up until this point, Clark had mostly seen his powers as something to hide or control. But Tina made him realize they could be misused by someone who didn't have his sense of right and wrong. She was a distorted reflection of what he could become if he ever lost control. The emotional stakes were also high. Tina's manipulation of Lana's life and identity shook Clark's sense of trust. If someone could pretend to be anyone, what did truth even look like anymore? Clark had to learn not just to use his abilities, but to sharpen his instincts, trust his moral compass, and protect the people he loved from dangers that weren't always obvious. And let's be honest, Tina Greer's episode brought a new level of psychological thriller energy to Smallville. She wasn't just strong or fast, she was unpredictable and mentally unstable. It wasn't brute force that made her terrifying. It was her ability to get inside people's lives and twist them. Tina may not be the most iconic villain in the series, but she earns a spot in the top 3 because of how early and how effectively she shook Clark's sense of self. She made him think about identity, morality, and the line between hero and monster. She was the first villain to make things personal. And from that point on, Clark understood. Having powers wasn't enough. It was how you chose to use them that truly mattered.
Come on, Clark! If you had the power to do whatever you want, what would you do?
I'd stop people like you.
Nothing on this earth can stop me.
Coming in at number 2 is Eric Summers, Smallville's very first what if Clark Kent, but evil scenario. Featured in episode 12, Leech, Eric becomes the first person to steal Clark's powers, and the results are as terrifying as they are eye-opening. At first, Eric is just a regular high school kid, awkward, a little invisible, and clearly struggling with his identity. But when a freak lightning storm and a kryptonite accident transfer Clark's powers to him, things go downhill fast. Eric doesn't just enjoy the rush of superhuman strength, he abuses it. He shows us exactly what happens when someone without moral grounding suddenly gets godlike abilities. For Clark, this episode was more than just a temporary loss of strength. It was a crash course in why he needs to be careful with his powers. Watching someone else misuse what he was born with was painful. Eric uses his powers to show off, bully others, and get revenge. While Clark had spent his life hiding, protecting, and making careful decisions, Eric did the opposite. He let power corrupt him almost instantly. This wasn't just a physical threat for Clark. It was an identity crisis. Seeing someone mishandle his powers forced Clark to ask himself, what makes me different? Why am I the one who deserves these powers? And the answer wasn't about strength, it was about character. Eric didn't become a villain because he had powers. He became a villain because he lacked restraint, empathy, and purpose. What's genius about this episode is how it flips the script. For a brief moment, Clark is powerless, and Eric is the one flying through the air. And yet, it's Clark who still acts like a hero, and Eric who becomes the threat. That contrast cements the central message of the show. Being Superman isn't about what you can do. It's about what you choose to do. Eric Summers might have been a one-episode villain, but his impact was huge. He forced Clark to recognize the weight of his own strength and the importance of never taking it for granted. More than any villain in Season 1, Eric showed Clark why he had to be the one to carry the burden of power, because not everyone is built for it. At number 1, we have a villain who didn't throw punches, melt steel, or shapeshift into your best friend, but still managed to be the most dangerous force in Clark Kent's world: Lionel Luthor.
Will be closing. Effective immediately. Good luck to all of you.
Lionel appears throughout Season 1 as a peripheral character at first, a powerful businessman, Lex's distant father, and a corporate puppet master. But what makes Lionel so compelling isn't just what he does, it's what he represents. While other villains brought physical threats, Lionel brought psychological warfare. And he didn't even need kryptonite to do it. Unlike the meteor freaks, Lionel doesn't confront Clark directly. He rarely even acknowledges Clark as anything more than Lex's friend. But from behind the scenes, he exerts an incredible amount of influence, not just on Lex, but on how Clark's world functions. He manipulates the system, uses people like chess pieces, and treats morality as a weakness to be eliminated. And while he may not throw punches, his shadow hangs over every major turning point. Lionel's biggest weapon? Lex Luthor. Season 1 subtly shows how Lionel begins shaping Lex into the man we all know he'll become, Superman's greatest enemy. Through cold indifference, mind games, and emotional manipulation, Lionel chips away at Lex's confidence and humanity. He treats Lex not like a son, but like a pawn, someone to test, to mold, and to control. That pressure pushes Lex closer and closer to the edge, and Clark sees it happening. This is where Lionel becomes Clark's most dangerous antagonist, not because he threatens Clark's life, but because he threatens Lex's soul. Clark is constantly trying to save Lex from becoming like his father, but Lionel is relentless, and Clark begins to realize that sometimes, no matter how much you believe in someone, you can't save them from the people shaping them from the inside. Lionel also introduces Clark to a deeper kind of threat, the kind that can't be punched or outrun. He represents the corrupt systems of power, the danger of unchecked ambition, and the terrifying reality that evil doesn't always look like a monster. Sometimes, it wears a tailored suit, signs the checks, and pretends to care. What's more, Lionel challenges Clark in subtle ways. Through his control over Lex, his presence in the community, and his moral coldness, Lionel constantly forces Clark to question how much influence one man can have, not through powers, but through manipulation and control. By the end of Season 1, you realize something important. While other villains came and went, Lionel was playing the long game. And in doing so, he didn't just affect one episode, he altered everything. He planted the seeds of Lex's eventual downfall, and in the process, became the villain who would indirectly shape Superman's greatest enemy. No powers, no supersuit. Just cold, brilliant, strategic evil. That's why Lionel Luthor is the most important villain of Season 1, and maybe the most dangerous of all. Think we nailed the top 3? Or did your favorite villain not make the list? Drop your pick in the comments, hit like if you love Smallville, and don't forget to subscribe for more iconic breakdowns. Thanks for watching.